I want to build a little bit on the last example that we did. So I did a very short example of using the broadcast receive blocks, and if you haven't seen that, you may want to watch that video. But basically all it does is when I hit the green flag, he says, "Hello, penguin." He responds, another response, and finally done. And we use the broadcast, sorry, we use the broadcast hello penguin, and penguin happened to be listening for hello penguin, and that's how he knew to respond and so forth. So maybe expand on this a little bit. There are a couple of things I thought about when I was creating this, and the one is how it gets started, and most likely you should always have a when green flag clicked event because that's how you start Scratch. But maybe you wanted it to also be started by maybe you just click on Scratchy and it can get started that way. So you can do that. That's pretty easy. So you go to events and you say when this sprite clicked, and I wanted to do the exact same thing. So I could, I guess, duplicate. Let's see what that does, and put this here. And then I click on the sprite and he should start the same process just like the other one did. So great, problem solved. My concern is, what if the start process was a little bit more involved? And let's say I'm running things and I wanted to make a change. Now I'm going to have to make the change two places. Once on this one and once on this one. I have to make two exact changes. I'm maintaining two copies. And think about if I had more than one sprite and there were more things that happened when you started up, it's very easy to make mistakes if you have to repeat things twice. So one thing I found in Scratch, and remember, I'm learning this just like you are. I am not expert in Scratch by any means. But I found this thing called More Blocks. So I clicked on that, and it said you can make a block. I'm like, oh, okay. So I clicked on that, and it says New Block, and over here there's like a little purple space there, and you can type in a name. So your new block. So I'm going to call this new block do start activities. You can call it whatever you want. And there are options here. You can actually pass in what are called, I guess parameters is what I would call them. And we'll look at that a little bit later. Right now I'm just going to keep this really simple and just say I'm going to call it do start activities. And there it is. And so what I'm going to do with this is this stuff here is what I want it to do. And now when it says when green flag clicked, I can say do start activities. And this bit here, I can get rid of and have him say do start activities. And so both of these events call this same block, which does this. And if we click, we can see that he is running our program. And if I just click on, I'm going to stop it, then I click on Scratchy, well, that also starts it. It's running through that same code. Now I only have one place if I need to make a change to that particular startup type of activities. So I can just change one thing. So this is great. And in other languages, this seems to be serving the same purpose as what other languages have. Some languages call them methods, some languages call them functions, or older languages might call them subroutines. So it's a way of just executing the same sort of code over and over. And when we talk about variables, and probably in the next video, I'll show you more things that these can do to make them even more robust, and that's fantastic. So I was very happy to see that they do this. Another thing that I thought I would try is to say, well, when everybody's finished speaking, maybe I can have some sort of broadcast for them to do kind of an ending activity. So the penguin here is, I think, the last guy that talks. So maybe he can start a broadcast of a new message. Again, I don't want it to be the same because we can get into that infinite loop. So I'm going to say done. So he's going to broadcast we're done. And that means that maybe Scratchy can listen and say, oh, great, when I receive done, maybe I want to do something. So let's see, what can we do? So I'm going to go into control, and we're going to make a little loop, and we haven't really spoken about loops and things, and we'll do that a little bit later. But you can see that it's just going to repeat the thing here 10 times, and I'm going to change it to 5 times. And what's he going to do? Nothing all that exciting. I'm just going to have him switch to his next costume. And what will will that look like? I guess I can just do this. Oops, I forgot my weight. That's why we test. So I want to have him wait, because again, he's much too fast. If you just say next costume, it will go so fast you don't see it. So I'm going to change that to 0.2. See if we like what that looks like. Yeah, he does a little jig, right? So now if I run things, let's see what happens. Hello, penguin. He responds. They have their little conversation. And he does his little jig. He's happy. But now maybe the penguin wants to do the little jig too. He says, hey, I want to do that. And so here is what, and again, I don't know Scratch very well. So I hope some of my students who do know it well can maybe show me how is this done. But I could not find a way to do this, which is I wanted to make this, the when I received done, a block, a user-defined block, so that both of them could call that and just do it. But I'm finding that these are very specific to the sprite that you're in. So when I click on penguin, he cannot see that. He can't see that block. If I were to make it one, he can't see that bit of code. And because it's very sprite specific, like it's changing costumes, it will only know to work with this sprite. Even if I could call it in here, it would probably change Scratchy's costume instead of Penguin's. So I think there's what I think is a workaround. A workaround is when something doesn't do exactly what you want, and so you try to find another solution that maybe it's not optimal, but it will still work. And so Scratch has this thing called a backpack, and it's down here, and I'm clicking on it. So if you click up, it says backpack. And what you can do is I can make a copy of this, and I put it in my backpack. And now this is a piece of code that will be visible to any other sprite. So if I click over here to my penguin, I can just put it in there and I don't have to retype everything. And so he also now will listen for done, even though he's broadcasting it. He's also listening for it, and he can do the same thing. So if I run my little program now, when they get to the end and the done message is broadcast, now they'll both do something. Oh, whoa, I don't know what happened to this guy. That did not work. Oh, because it didn't. Oh, okay. Sorry about that, folks. I guess when I moved it in there, it was a copy, not a move. So let's try that again. Again, while we test. And now they both do it. And I also found another little thing I didn't like, which was my penguin here. He was facing to the right when we stopped before. And then I didn't like the way he started. So I want to fix that. And I'm going to put that in the start, I guess. Let's see. So he's also going to need when something is started. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't really like the solution here. I can sort of do it. So if I go into this sprite, and I say when he's clicked, I want to switch him to a costume that has him looking where I want him to look. So I want him to be looking left, and I have a penguin left. If you look at his costumes, there's one that says he's looking left and one that he's looking right. So if I run it, let me put him the other way. So if I run it now, it puts him in the right thing. But there is a little concern here that if I click on him to start, he won't know to turn. So now it starts getting more complicated than I want it to be, and I'm probably not going to fix that right now, but I hope you can see the issue here. So if I start with this, it doesn't know to move him because this is when sprite clicked. So maybe I need another something when you click this sprite to send a message that I was clicked to tell him to go move. And this is, again, workarounds, I think, because of how complicated it gets when you can't just do, call functions, have these blocks visible to more than one sprite. So I think there's ways that you can sort of get there, but not if it's doing some sprite-specific things. And so we need to put our heads together and see if there's a better way. I will say that other languages do this a lot more elegantly. So Scratch is a great learning language, but these are things that I see as maybe I don't know, something that I wish it did a little bit better. So anyway, this is how you create your own block.